we are in multiple homes a week. I mean, anywhere between 30 and 60 homes a week.
In many markets, you've got these big players that are spending, oftentimes 7 figures a month, right, in marketing and advertising.
The modern homeowner knows very little about taking care of a home.
Hello, friends. I'm Adam Loveridge. Welcome to the Home Services Marketing Podcast, Growth to Acquisition. I'm the owner and founder of Job Calls. We're a home services marketing agency specializing in heating, air conditioning, plumbing, and remodeling contractors. For more information about Job Calls, visit us online at www.jobcalls.com. Hello and welcome to the Home Services Marketing Growth to Acquisition Podcast. My name is Adam Loveridge with Job Calls, and I'm really excited today. I'm joined by Andrew Sams from Alpine Building Performance out of Denver, Colorado. And Andrew, thanks so much for joining me here this morning.
Thanks so much for having me, Adam. It's a pleasure to be on the podcast.
It's a pleasure to have you. And this is kind of a fun one for me because we're going to be getting into a different type of strategy for how home service contractors can grow their business. Rather than me tell you what you do, why don't you tell me what Alpine Building Performance does?
Absolutely. So Alpine Building Performance is a home and commercial property inspection business. I started the business in 2016 here in the Denver metro area. We've been working with clients and real estate agents throughout Denver metro for the better part of the last decade. We have a team of 14 here, and we serve home buyers primarily, but also commercial buyers and property investors throughout this part of the Front Range. So we have, just love working with clients, and so we have a lot of interaction with home service professionals, which is what I'm excited to talk about today.
Me too, and thanks for sharing that. And so, really quick, it sounds like you've been in business here for a while. Talk to me a little bit about what your growth as a company has looked like over those years.
Sure. So, as with a lot of home inspection companies, I started out just myself. I was doing everything in the beginning, from inspections to scheduling and everything involved. And, of course, one of those pieces was marketing. And I think I found pretty quickly that I really enjoy the marketing side of the business. And I also quickly kind of learned the difference between marketing and sales. I think a lot of people kind of combine those two, but, really leaning into educational and content-based marketing is how we have really grown to where we are today. And I'm fortunate that I just love what I do, and I love homes and love buildings and love education, and recognize that gap in education when it comes to home ownership, particularly for younger generations that are making up the bulk of the home buyer market right now. And so, by just really focusing on client and agent education, that's where we've focused our marketing efforts, and it's seemed to really pay off for us over the years.
I really appreciate that as a content marketer myself. I mean, this is something that I'm always, thinking about is how do we educate people, and really how do we create a system to, consistently warm people up, if you will, and then bring them through the doors, right? And to me, that's marketing. And then the sales is, now that they've showed up, bill them, right?
Certainly.
figure out how to do that. And what are some of the approaches that you take in terms of, your content marketing efforts?
Yeah, well, we're fortunate that we are just constantly exposed to so much potential content throughout the course of an inspection. What are the things that we're seeing on a day-to-day basis, and then really explaining how, what that means, how it works, and then how it's relevant to you. So, some direct examples would be, some things to look for at a showing if you're in the market for a home, or, what are the top 10 home inspection findings in Colorado, or, common home inspection issues the agent should be informed and aware of. And so we're out in the field day in and day out. And so we have these opportunities to, pull out the phone and shoot a quick video and talk about why an electrical panel, why a particular electrical panel is something to keep an eye out for, or why grading and drainage around a home is so important, or the key tips for, furnace maintenance and things like that. So, we're really fortunate that we're just exposed to this stuff. And it's really just a matter of taking a moment and capturing that film. And I think that, we've gotten a lot of feedback that a lot of the more informal videos and kind of that short form content is more appealing a lot of times than more edited and scripted type videos. So it's just a matter of getting in and doing it.
Yeah, I think there's something really authentic about somebody whipping out their iPhone and, hey, here's what we've got going on. I'm out here checking out this furnace or whatever it is. And this is a common thing that we see. And I try to do that in the podcast and with some video marketing that we do as well. My question for you very simply is, I'm guessing you're taking this stuff and you're turning this into blog posts and things along those lines too. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. We are.
Digging maybe just a little bit deeper here, what have you seen in terms of how that works for what I would call top of funnel traffic? Meaning, because really we're talking, home inspector near me, right, is bottom of funnel. Somebody's
Sure.
looking for a home inspector right now,
Sure.
but long-tailed stuff like, what are the common issues that happen with a heating system, right? Or, like some of that stuff that you've talked about. How do you see that really playing out for you in terms of, let's say, traffic to the website and also YouTube or other video channels or even your social channels?
Yeah. Yeah. So that's something we've, certainly been keeping an eye on, and it's a little hard to pin down exactly, but we have seen our rankings certainly grow favorably as far as our kind of organic SEO. Seeing the Google Analytics of what particular content is doing better than others has been fascinating. I think it's hard to really get to that top of funnel when it comes to a lot of the stuff, because there is so much content out there kind of on a national basis. But particularly whenever we talk about something market specific, we see really good results. And so here in the Front Range, to give you one example, we've got really interesting expansive soils. And so a lot of the content we do around structure and foundation in the Front Range in regards to those expansive soils, one piece of content we've seen really good results with for blogs and videos and things like that. So kind of following those trends and seeing, which videos, which blogs, which pages are getting the most traffic, and then kind of leaning into that content a little bit has been interesting for us. But, it's all, I mean, I'm definitely an amateur marketer, so all these things, it's a learning experience ongoing for us.
Yeah, well, amateur or not, what I would say, and I try to do this with clients of ours all the time, where we coach them like, hey, when you're out fixing a furnace or you're out, repiping a home or whatever it is that you're doing, right, in the trades, which is mostly what we focus on, right, those MEP contractors, take a minute, record a video on it. It doesn't have to be perfect. In fact, if you really look at what most people are viewing on YouTube, it's not, it's just, it's grainy. It's not that professional.
It's true.
Really,
It's true.
but it's knowledgeable. And that's the thing that I think that you're able to do, is you're able to take the knowledge that you have and very, very quickly teach people. And to you, it may be nothing, like, oh, we do this every single day, but to people who want to know, it's valuable information. So I love that you guys are doing that, and that, that you've made that part of how you consistently fill the funnel, so to speak.
Certainly. Well, thanks. And we enjoy it. And I think there's a big gap out there, particularly with home services. I think so many people are consumed in the day-to-day, busy with schedules, and just taking a moment to record a little bit of content in this day and age goes a really long way. And I don't see that very often with a lot of home services companies. I think there's a big opportunity there, because the content is educational and informative to the viewer, but it's also demonstrating your value and demonstrating your knowledge. I mean, everyone's out there. Every single home inspector, for example, says we're thorough, we're knowledgeable, we're all these things. And it's like, great, but show me that. And I think that when people watch our content, and just to back up a little bit, we're kind of in a unique market in the sense that we get most of our business from real estate agent referrals. So we do have a very target audience. Of course, we do a lot of homeowner and homebuyer education, but a lot of what we focus on is education for real estate agents to help them be able to speak more intelligently and more informed to their clients, and look like rock stars in front of their clients to go, oh, this is why a Federal Pacific Electric panel is something that's going to come up in the inspection. But by being able to convey that value and knowledge and expertise through that content, they're able to then reach out to us and say, hey, we've never actually worked together, but I'm confident if we send our clients or refer our clients over to you, they're going to be in good hands because of your knowledge base.
What I really liked about what you had to say, Andrew, is that, and I'm going to use this as the opportunity to kind of segue into what I think we really want to talk about today. But your business is largely going to be driven by real estate agents. And so really you have a referral marketing, strategy, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
And what I find very unique and kind of fun and special about that is that we're here today, or what you really wanted to talk about, and I think it's a fantastic subject for our audience, is really how to partner with home inspection companies to get a steady stream of referrals into your home service company. So talk to me, and what's cool about it is it's like, this is what you guys are doing for realtors. And I love that you get to now educate, home service contractors on this is how this can actually work for you too. So I'm just going to let you take it away, friend.
Great. Well, thanks, Adam. Yeah. So this is a topic I've been really passionate and focused, passionate about and focused on for the past couple of years. And that's building out our home service provider network. And so, why this is so exciting to me is that it's just mutually beneficial for everyone involved. And so, to really lay the groundwork a little bit, our job as a general home inspector is to go in, do a deep dive assessment on the current condition of the home, and then deliver a report showing everything that needs attention and needs repair that we want our buyers to be aware of. And, no home is perfect. So every single home inspection report is always a list of repairs, basically. And, naturally the next question and the follow-up from agents and buyers is, okay, who can fix this? And how much is it going to cost? It's not in the scope of an inspector's job to do the follow-up work. I mean, our job is just to inspect and report, and it's their job to take it from there and find a contractor, find a handyman, an HVAC company. But of course, we want to deliver as much value as possible. So if we're able to say, hey, we've got 3 great HVAC companies we can refer you over to get this work done, that's a huge value add for our service. And so, we have been working to build out this network of trusted vendors. It's not something we monetize. We believe in the integrity of that network, but really been building that out, and it's just been really well received by our agents and clients to not have to go to HomeAdvisor, to not have to go to Google to find a plumber, to find an electrician. And, we instill so much trust through the process that they want to use us. They want to use our referrals because we are unbiased. And so those referrals really have a lot of weight. And of course, we enjoy having those relationships, which I can talk about a couple of the other benefits there, but that's really our intention in a nutshell, and the way that a lot of the industry has been going. So it's something I'm excited to kind of bring to the podcast and your listeners.
I work with some real estate agents, and I'm still part of a networking organization called BNI. Maybe you've heard of it, and and it's funny because I've gone kind of, I was in BNI in my early days. I've since kind of come back to it after a long pause. Mostly because it just keeps me plugged into people. And the fact of the matter is that word of mouth is just such a powerful marketing strategy. And I think for a lot of home service contractors, as they grow, they sort of start to forget the word of mouth game, right? Because you had mentioned that you've tuned into the podcast that I did with Lemon Seed of a
Hmm.
month or so ago, and she talked about not really working with contractors that are spending less than 8 figures a year, right?
Sure.
And as the natural uh, thing that happens is, we start investing more money in marketing. We start really relying more on digital channels or maybe TV, radio, billboards, that sort of thing. We stop focusing so much on the word of mouth. We stop focusing so much on the referrals, and kind of coming back full circle to what I wanted to share. That is that I think from the perspective of real estate agents, your target market, right? The people who are going to
Hmm.
refer most of the business to you. One thing that I know about these real estate agents is that they want to have a broad network of people, because they're more than just listing your house, or they're more than just helping you find a house, right? The more value they can add to their clients, the more value the more value they're perceived as having in the eyes of their clients. And that's really what they want to do, right? Is they want to be that realtor for life. And so having a broad
Certainly.
network of contractors they can refer, I think, is a big deal. And what I love about what you're talking about is you're bridging that gap for them. And you're saying, hey, we already have people that are qualified in what it is that this house needs to have fixed in this area. We know they serve this area. We've vetted them out, and you're right, where you're already there working with the homeowner, and you're coming up with a really nice report on everything that's going on in the property. And then you can take that extra step and say, and we have people that can solve this for you. Here's a couple different resources. And that, boy, those referrals are always going to be way more powerful even than Google. Okay.
Sure.
As a Google guy, I will
Yeah.
say that it's in order of social proof or credibility, right? Referrals are always going to be at the top. With Google reviews, no doubt it's the second best thing, but it's not the best.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And I'll say that in clear conscience, which is why I still do referral marketing. And so my question then, Andrew, is what are you looking for in a great contractor, and how do you vet these resources to make sure that they're going to be solid referrals for your clients?
Absolutely. That's a great question. And truthfully, something we're still refining, and working through. We've slowly been building out our network, because we do want the quality of the referral to be strong. And I think to answer that question, I've got a couple points. One, we want to have a relationship. We of course want to be confident that our vendors are going to. Um, be a good representation of us, when we refer someone over. So we want to make sure that the baseline professionalism, responsiveness, process, communication is all there. Of course, the one of the common complaints with home service companies is just lack of responsiveness, or, they didn't show
Sure.
up, or they didn't return my calls. So, that component has to be there. But I think one of the important things, and I want to stress this to anyone listening that'd be interested in pursuing this referral type partnership, is really having a good working relationship and understanding of what the home inspector actually does and does not do as part of the scope of work. We hear a lot from just word of mouth through from home service professionals are like, oh, the inspector should have seen this, or this should have not have passed inspection. And pass fail is not even in the vocabulary of a home inspection. It's not a pass fail. And so I think there's a big lack of understanding of what a home inspection even what a home inspector is doing and not doing. And so really understanding that, being able to work together as a team, and then being able to educate each other. That's one of the things that we look for in our partners, is saying, hey, we have a team of home inspectors that are thirsty for more knowledge about solar panels, more knowledge about boiler systems, more knowledge about hydronic heating systems. And we know a lot, but we don't know as much, of course, as the technician does. And so to be able to have those educational partnerships, whether it's, coming in to teach an hour-long lunch and learn to our team, or being able to just be a resource that we can call on to say, hey, we've got this really interesting system here that we would love your input on. That's really valuable to us as well. But again, it's like you said earlier. We are really going after the same value add that a lot of real estate agents are going after. Is, hey, we want to be as comprehensive and valuable as possible as a one-stop shop to say, not only are we going to come in, do a great inspection and deliver all this information, we're going to help you then execute on that by providing some really good referrals. And so I think, just going back to your original question, having just a strong partnership and relationship, and being able to share knowledge and learn from each other, I think is kind of the fundamental component there.
I have a decontamination contractor that we work with that does a lot of methamphetamine remediation.
Mm-hmm.
And so, as you can imagine, he also networks with a lot of real estate agents because, this is something that they want to get tested out, pretty commonly. I don't know if there's more meth in Utah than the rest of the rest of the nation necessarily, but I do know that it's a problem here. In fact, I've heard it called the Mormon drug because ephedra grows naturally here in Utah.
Yep.
So the teas and different things that people, that you'd hear about them making and things. But I'm digressing a little bit. My point very simply though is that you hit on something that I think is really, really important, and where I think a lot of home service contractors are really missing the boat. And that is that they're not really educating their clientele and their referral partners, for the cost of lunch for let's say an HVAC contractor to come in and educate 14 people, or let's say even 10 people that are out in the field every single day looking at HVAC systems. and oftentimes I suspect you guys probably, or maybe the call doesn't come to you, but I do know that oftentimes when a homeowner is looking to buy a new house, they want to get that HVAC system certified. And so they want to do the inspection. They want to do the HVAC system. They want to make sure there's not meth in the house, right? They want to make sure there's not mold in the house. There's all these different things. And for an HVAC contractor or just, any home service contractor to be able to come in, educate a bunch of inspectors and say, hey, these are the things that we really look for when we're troubleshooting a system, or these are the things that you could look for so that you can add more value to your clients. That's a one-to-many approach. And we don't talk about that very much, or I don't talk about that very much because it's, we're in the digital space, right? And so it's sort of implied with video marketing. If I, go record a great video and snap it up to YouTube, that's obviously one-to-many. But we don't think about it because it's rare that we're walking into a building, sitting down with people over lunch and actually educating people. But what I know from my meth remediation company and from other companies that I work with that tend to have realtors or, inspectors as referral partners, is that when they get these opportunities to come in and share their knowledge and experience, it doesn't happen right away. But within weeks, they start getting the calls. Hey, I'm here at this house. I'm seeing this thing going on. Is this what you were talking about? Okay, yeah, it is. Perfect. I need to get you in here, to resolve this. This is something that the homeowner wants to get taken care of immediately. And that's you can't leverage yourself any better than that, and leverage your knowledge and experience any better than that, in my opinion. What's your thoughts on it?
I agree completely. I mean, boy, I've got a lot of thoughts along those lines. I mean, we are, I guess, just kind of unpack this one bit at a time. One of the biggest value propositions here that we can offer to our vendors is we are in multiple homes a week. I mean, anywhere between 30 and 60 homes a week. That's 30 to 60 furnaces. That's 30 to 60 water heaters. That's 30 to 60 electrical panels. And we know what we're talking about too. It's not that you're just, talking to the lay person. I mean, we're not an HVAC technician, but we know about as much about an HVAC system as a non-technician can. So we're able to kind of pre-qualify a lot of these systems and the work, and to be able to say, this is what we think is needed here. I mean, it seems like a draft inducer fan is going bad on this 80% furnace. Like, great, I can take that from there. So we're able to provide more information. And a lot of times, you can't get the data on what a home has as far as systems without physically going into the crawl space or the attic to say, oh, that's a 2014 Goodman standard efficiency furnace. That's something that at this point in time, at least, you have to have kind of boots on the ground approach. So that's one. But I think, like you said, with kind of that one-to-many approach, being able to get in front of inspectors, you actually can really leverage your time. And so, we're kind of a mid-size inspection company. We're certainly a small business, but in the home inspection world, we're a small multi-inspector company. If you are an HVAC contractor and you built relationships with 5 companies like ours, all of a sudden you've now educated 30 inspectors that are in your market, in the field, boots on the ground, and producing potentially hundreds of leads a week that are qualified. And then being able to work with someone that's educated, building that relationship of, okay, what kind of information do you need from us? And we do have a standard approach, of course, but we're all humans, and this is an industry that we can modify and improve kind of on the fly. And so if we talk to one of our recommended or preferred vendors and they're like, hey, when you're in there, if you could collect this piece of information to then pass along to us, we can go, sure, we can do that. And that's what I mean by really being able to kind of build that working relationship. Another thing I just kind of find fascinating, we just had a solar contractor come to a lunch and learn with our team. And this particular contractor, we have been working or officing out of the same building as that contractor for 3 years. And we've never had a working relationship with them. Of course, I knew their name and all that, but just that 1 hour of time and the education and the value that they brought to us, now we are just actively referring them, and we want to refer them because they educated us on, here are the things you should be educating your clients on. And we're like, wow, this is great. I mean, we've now got talking points that we can communicate and educate. And so if this home service professional is able to kind of give us their elevator pitch, then we can kind of pass along that pitch of here's the value of certifying a furnace. Here's the value of doing a solar, diagnostics, inspection, and evaluation. And then, of course, then the client then can justify, oh, this is why we need to spend $500 on this additional inspection or additional service, because we have some talking points at that point. So again, I do think there's just so much value. And I guess the last thing I'll say, I'm sure, any contractor that's listening to this is going, okay, I get it, but we've worked with real estate agents before and they're always just fishing for quotes. And that is absolutely a real thing. That's a consideration. But, I put a lot of thought into this, and there are ways to work around that. One, I mean, as a private company, you can set boundaries and you can set processes of, hey, we don't provide these quotes, but hey, here's what we can provide. And so, no matter what that is, that's up to you to figure out. But I guess what I'm saying is it is a challenge to overcome, but I wouldn't just shy away from this referral marketing strategy just because of that one little challenge. There's a way to overcome it and still be their preferred vendor. And, sure, you're not going to get 100% on every referral source. Maybe you get 10 referrals and 9 are looking for quotes, and that 10th is looking to do a $15,000 ductless mini split system. I would just encourage contractors not to shy away just for that one objection.
Yeah, I'd agree with you. And there's a few points that I've been kind of thinking about as I'm hearing you talk about this. My partner is a general contractor, a female remodeler, and she gets a lot of realtors that come to her and like, hey, would you be open to doing, an estimate for us or for my clients, because they're buying this house, but they want to make it theirs. And this has been a pretty common trend, right? Is like people want to come in and do a remodel right out of the gate. And there's even loan products that will support that. And so, she would do that very similarly, go out and do these free estimates. And she's like, man, I'm spending all my time doing free estimates for people where, they're not moving forward. So what she started doing is saying, okay, I will only do that if they're under contract, and it's going to be $100 for, to come out and do the thing and do the estimate. But there's this universal principle that if somebody buys from you once, they're more likely to buy from you another time. And so, even if you come up with this is why HVAC contractors use the tune-ups, right? $25 tune-up, $35 tune-up is a loss leader all day long.
Absolutely.
But they know that once they're in the house, they're going to develop rapport with the homeowner, and it's going to make it worth it because, that you've got to consider the lifetime value of that. And so
absolutely,
I think you're right about the fact that oftentimes realtors are fishing, and we see that quite a bit. But I also think too, in this situation, they're not. And because you figure you're already in there as the inspector. This is not the real estate agent that is calling an HVAC contractor saying, hey, how much does it cost to certify a system? This is you saying the homeowners want to have the system certified. We know that you're charging whatever, monetary value it is that you're charging. We've already queued this up for you. Go. And so that to me is kind of issue number, or objection number one, right? If you will. Mm-hmm. Okay. Objection number two for me then is considering, okay, yes, when you talk about close rates, okay, we do marketing all day long, and I can tell you that not 100% of the leads that we get are going to close in a business. It's a lot higher with Google My Business leads. Okay. It's less so with, Google ads, somewhere in the middle, maybe with Google LSA, if you can get LSA to perform, right? But it's like different advertising channels are going to have different conversion rates attached to them.
Certainly.
We don't do a lot with Facebook because for most of our clients, Facebook is a crappy lead source. You're chasing down leads. The conversion on them sucks. Maybe 1 in 20, you're going to turn into a deal. When you consider referrals, they're still going to have the highest closing ratio at the end of the day, over any other form of advertising, in my experience. Okay. Because people want to do business with people they know, like, and trust. And that's where that referral and referability really comes in there. And I think that these contractors really, really could do well, frankly, to consider what their referability looks like. And again, what I really like about BNI is it gives you a system if you follow these rules and you do this thing the way that we teach you how to do it, you're going to be highly referable and you're going to make a lot of money,
Absolutely.
And so I like that as a train anybody on how to do referral marketing, because it just improves your brand, improves, everything. And then here's the last thing that I'm going to say about this. When you consider that average cost per lead for a heating and air conditioning contractor is starting to inch over 100, sometimes even $125. Okay. I remember we used to sell calls from lead gen assets that we had deployed for $60 a call all day long. Okay. It's really, really tough to find leads for $60 anymore. Okay. And when you talked earlier about the fact that like people could be getting hundreds of leads a week, okay, let's take that down to like 10% just for a moment and say people could get a dozen leads a week, okay? That's $1,200, $1,300, $1,500, maybe even a couple $1,000 a week of free marketing and advertising. With probably the highest close percentage that you're going to be able to get, because it's referrals that we're talking about. And I think that when you paint it in that light and you look at it from a cross comparison of return on investment in terms of where you're going to put your advertising dollars and your time.
Sure.
Yes. It takes little time on your part as an HVAC company owner to have your marketing company run an ads campaign and up your budget by $2,000 a week. but you're going to convert a lot more of those referrals. And is it worth it, to go out and just network with some home inspectors? And that's how I kind of look at it with my, analytics brain anyway. Um, yeah. And I think it really just makes a ton of sense.
I agree. I couldn't agree more. And I mean, the input of time and effort and energy to building these relationships is pretty minimal. I mean, it doesn't take us long to meet with someone and determine if they're a professional that we want to refer. We see, hey, this person knows their stuff. They gave us a background on how they work. I had a conversation with the owner of a plumbing company a few weeks ago, and it was a 15-minute conversation. And we got so much out of that 15 minutes. He's like, here's how I work. Here's how I operate. This is my philosophy on how we quote jobs, on how we operate as a company. I'm like, that sounds great. That's right in line with what we want to see. Let's work together. Okay, excellent. Great. Call me if you need anything. And that's it, and he's gotten jobs from our referrals. And I think, I think you're right. Well, I know you're right on you don't convert every lead you get from any stream. And so to discount this referral partnership just based on, past traumas, contractors have had working with realtors, I would highly encourage someone to reevaluate that and say, no, let's create a system of how we capture these leads and how we work with these leads. And just like you would on a Google lead or a Facebook lead or whatever, you're going to capture that information and hopefully be able to, send them a resource and get them on a mailing list. It's like, maybe you didn't, quote that job, but, that person's going to need a plumber. And I think, one of the things that I see just on a more macro scale is, the modern homeowner knows very little about taking care of a home. I mean, this isn't the baby boomer generation of, oh yeah, we grew up, we could, fix our cars and fix our homes. People today want concierge type service. And I haven't seen anyone balk at getting a referral. People want to be connected. I mean, they'll even say, give our information to that contractor for them to call us. Like, we need help. We need help cleaning our gutters. We need help washing our windows. We definitely need help changing a water heater. And so, like you said, it's that kind of lifetime value. Maybe it's not there today. But if you can figure out how to be that trusted resource during that homeownership journey, there's a ton of value there. And I'll say, for anyone that needs any more convincing, I haven't really talked much about this today, but the big players in this industry, the home advisors, the porch, they already recognize this. They recognize that the home inspection industry, we're the gatekeepers and the initial lead gen source. And so there's been a lot of acquisitions and a lot of movement in private equity and big M&A deals about getting these leads. And so the big players are already onto this. And so I think, the more, on a local level, contractors can just take advantage of this concept, the better off everyone is.
Yeah, absolutely. I wasn't aware of that PE is PE is buying up everything. So I don't know why I would be all that surprised.
Sure.
They're also buying up home inspection companies as a lead in or foot in the door for, the HVAC, the MEP portfolio that they have, right?
Sure.
In various markets.
Sure.
So that I guess that's not terribly surprising. I'm gonna just kind of shift gears back to what you were talking about, though, in terms of, yeah, you're right. Not every lead is going to convert. And two things that I have found really make a world of difference. Okay. And I'll give just a little education on how I like to get referrals and how I think other people really ought to get referrals. And that is that I always like somebody making a 3-way text introduction with me, because it's just the easiest thing in the world so I'm an inspector. I'm here in the home. I know that we've got issues. client says, yeah, I this water heater, like, okay, it's only producing hot water for about 5 minutes before it's running out. It definitely needs to be replaced. It's 15 years old. Who do you have that's a plumber? And if all of a sudden that inspector, sends a text message out to the homeowner, sends a text message out to the plumber, it's like, hey, Mr. Plumber, want you to meet Mr. Homeowner. He's got a water heater that needs replaced. Please connect at your earliest opportunity. It makes that formal introduction. And to me, that takes a lead from being a lead to being a referral. Okay. Because now I've already got rapport here with this home inspector. And now I'm maintaining that rapport and I'm maintaining that trust by connecting everybody together. And then the second thing that I would say is marketing automation is a real thing. Okay. And if you don't have a system for when you get leads from word of mouth that you're going to be able to consistently follow up with those people, over time, let me just say that you're leaving a lot of money on the table. You're leaving a lot of money on the table because the fact of the matter is that most of us aren't that great at following up. It's why most contractors that I work with don't like Home Advisor, because it's a follow-up game. You get the lead and now everybody's trying to chase that lead down, right? And they say that the first person that gets there is going to win. I think that's bullshit, actually. It's the person who has the most consistent follow-up system that's going to win, because what happens is, and people don't realize this, but when I go out and I search online for something, let's say, plumbers near me, right? And I go out to a few plumbing sites and this and that, right? Or I go look on Facebook and I'm trudging around out there. All of a sudden I start seeing ads, right? All over the place on Google,
Yep.
on all these different, networks. I'm seeing display advertising. I'm seeing advertising on Facebook. All of a sudden I start getting email that's being sent to me from that's all being triggered in this. And so what ends up happening is that people go into this state of almost like overwhelm where they just get flooded by contractors, this same thing that happens when you go out to Home Advisor, right? And they go into this sort of like analysis paralysis of I can't do anything. So there's about a 2 to 3 week period there in my experience, especially for non-emergency related type stuff. Like, yeah, I'd like to get a new water heater, or I'd like to remodel this kitchen, or, I'd like to maybe change the tub to a shower in my bathroom, or, those sorts of things, right? Where it's discretionary spending. I think the company who creates an automated campaign to go out and educate those people, to stay top of mind with them. And the great thing about these, now, especially with AI, it's like you can really tailor the crap out of this stuff.
You can.
And have everything on an automated system so that eventually you're going to win in the long game after every other contractor has just bailed out after 2 or 3 phone calls.
I agree.
And that's another opportunity, I think, for home service contractors to be able to stay on top of those leads by having a long-term follow-up. We kind of separate it out. We have a hot lead follow-up sequence, and then we have a long-term follow-up sequence where it's just staying in touch with those drip, because you're right, on a long enough timeline, you're probably going to be able to get them as a customer. And if you take HVAC as an example, what I love about heating and air contractors is it's just like going to the dentist. If you're doing it right as a homeowner, and as you mentioned, people they do want concierge service. They don't want to fix stuff anymore. Like my kids, I still taught them how to change oil, right, in their cars.
Yeah.
But it's like, but they don't want to have to learn this stuff. It's just, there's not an inclination for it. They'd rather just go submit a form somewhere and have someone fix it, and so if you can educate these people as you go, and you can consistently follow up with them, you're going to get that. And, and that's what I really appreciate about like heating and air as an example, is if you're doing this stuff right, you're getting your furnace tuned up before the heating season, and you're getting your AC tuned up in spring. And it's just like going to the dentist. You're in there twice a year, and twice a year you get an opportunity to sell those people. But people also want a plumber for life. They also want a remodeler for life. They're looking for contractors that they can trust. And I think that what you're talking about here, and why this is such a brilliant strategy, is because you're developing the trust right out of the gate, and then home service contractors get to piggyback off of that
Exactly.
trust to where they don't
Exactly.
have to go out and create it.
That's so true. And, we work really hard on building that trust and building those relationships. And typically at the point that we are passing along a referral, that trust is strong at that point, and people will take our word. I mean, we are seen as the trusted advisor. I mean, not to use the term, but it's like we are the home advisor. We know that home better than anyone, even in a 3-hour period. I mean, to be able to just deeply go through that home, understand its systems, how everything works. I mean, and we have the client's best interest. We don't make anything on a furnace. We don't make anything on a new roof. And I think, some people in the industry certainly are monetizing it, and that's fine. Just personally, I think the way, we want to conduct our business is, yes, it would be great to get some referral fees. That's fine. But in the long run, because we're in this for the long run, I think the value add of being able to connect everyone and provide a better service is going to reap more benefits in the long run, because people can really trust those partnerships. And, I alluded to it maybe a little bit earlier, but there's a lot of value for us in having these relationships. I mean, there's situations where, it's very few and far between, but, maybe we miss something in an inspection, or we accidentally break something. I just had one of my guys the other day pull a cover plate, off a piece of HVAC equipment, and there was a loose transformer from a previous repair, and it shorted out. And we said, hey, even though this wasn't really directly our fault, we were the last set of hands that touched this. We're going to take care of it. I called our preferred HVAC vendor. They were out there the next morning. They took care of it. They billed us. We paid them directly for the work. And so there are situations like that sometimes where we need someone, or, I mean, all of our preferred vendors have done work on my personal home and my office manager's home. And so, I've always been, over the past 9 years of being in business, I've always been so fascinated by the little referrals, the word of mouth that always come in, and you're like, man, I just, I'm so amazed by that person I had lunch with 3 years ago just hired us to do their home inspection, or, just these little ways. And certainly, it always seems it has a way of coming in, on a really slow week or something like that. I'm like, man, I'm glad we built that relationship with someone. I mean, there's someone here in the office. Well, just a little background. We work out of a construction industry specific co-working space. So it's really cool. It's called Tradecraft Industries here in Denver. But it's all construction industry professionals. And so we're doing an inspection tomorrow morning for a deck contractor. And there are, one of our preferred vendors for decking. But I digress a little bit, but there's a lot of value there, and us being able to have that specialist, kind of on speed dial to say, hey, what do you think about this? What do you think about that? Here's a new technology. We want to learn a little bit more. That's been huge for us as well.
I completely agree on all fronts, and back to the, I'll kind of just end, I think, what, from my perspective on this, when you talk about referrals, no doubt you can make money by charging for referrals. But the thing that I really love about referral marketing is that there's this principle that we don't talk about very much in marketing, because it in the digital age, it's been largely just, beaten out. Okay. But it's reciprocity. And when I give somebody a referral, and I, or for that matter, multiple referrals, okay, what ends up happening is it's like there's this equity that starts to build up where you almost feel a little guilty because you're like, oh man, I gotta like help this guy grow his business. He's over here like, bumping me up full of leads and I ain't doing shit for
Absolutely.
him. And like, what,
Yeah,
so,
it's
and
true.
so so I start thinking about how can I, how can I give Andrew some big, and so all of a sudden they're at a, they're talking to their brother who's like, oh yeah, I'm getting ready to, getting ready to sell my house or whatever. It's like, oh, you know what? You got to talk to Andrew to do a pre-listing inspection so that you guys
Yeah,
know in advance what's going on. And now he's making a referral back to you. And it winds up, that again, I'm not here to plug BNI, but,
sure.
their motto is givers gain. Okay. And the idea being is that when I give, referrals to other people, they tend to come back and eventually they tend to come back in a way that is very substantial. So I really like that you're not putting the, the monetary value to it. Not that there's anything wrong with that. Right. And I think that there's all sorts of ways for all sorts of business models to, to work. And there's just something very, that reciprocity is built in to referral marketing. And I think that's something that people don't think about very much, but it is a big
Sure.
deal. It's a really, really big deal.
I couldn't agree more.
Andrew, one of the questions that I have is, are there any other advantages very specifically that you can think of in terms of working with home inspectors that we might be missing?
Great question. So one thing I did want to mention is, generally speaking, home inspectors are working with clients that are new to a market. They're moving to the Denver metro area from Oregon or California or North Carolina or Texas, and they don't yet have that network. And so I think it's a great opportunity for home service professionals to get in front of these homeowners and home buyers when they are fresh to a market. And so you can cut through the noise and really stand out and build that relationship with someone that is new and looking to build their trusted network.
I think that's a really, really good point because, obviously in many markets there you've got these big players that are spending, oftentimes 7 figures a month, right? In marketing and advertising and branding, right? Like we're going to, like Coca-Cola, you will know us,
Yes.
if you live here long enough.
Yes.
But when somebody's coming in, they don't know. And their only other option is a Google search, right? Like who's
Yeah.
the best, top, top plumbers near me, right? Top HVAC contractors near me. And so what I love about that is that it's like you're getting them while they're still fresh. And it really is about building that relationship for life. Right. And so
Absolutely.
I have one of our contractors actually that does something similar to that, where they watch, they get lists from new move-ins. And it's like, hey, you're in the area. We want to be your local HVAC contractor. And they'll just send them out postcards. We don't think about direct mail near as much anymore, but it's highly effective, especially when people are new to an area and they're looking for a referral. So that I think that's a really, really great point. And frankly, how, a contractor without this expansive marketing and branding budget can sort of slide under the radar
Absolutely.
and take business from the big boys,
Yeah. It's a great way to get your foot in the door.
Well, yeah, and they're also not thinking about referral marketing. Okay, when you get to that level, like your word of mouth game just, it's just probably not there anymore because you don't focus on it, and it's just, you talked about PE earlier, and if there's one thing I've figured out working with PE companies is that it's, first of all, most of them, they're all ads guys, and it's just like, if we can get $2 back for every dollar we put in, that's a solid ROI. How do we put in infinitely more dollars? Right. So they're not thinking about this type of stuff. And I think it gives your smaller contractors and frankly, the ones that grew small, maybe are bigger now, but still want to stay with their grassroots, like that word of mouth game needs to stay strong. So I love that part of it. Now, I think maybe last thing I want to touch on, I know that you guys do some really, really cool stuff with software specifically. Tell me more about that, and what are the advantages to home service contractors for that?
Yeah, that's great. I'm glad you brought that up because I did want to talk for a minute, kind of about the mechanics of, lead delivery. And so, of course, like you said, going back earlier, we can send a text message introducing someone. I think most companies will have, a list, whether that's a printed list or a PDF. We have a home service provider webpage on our website that's a really popular feature. So someone can go and see our list by category. But the really exciting thing that we've been kind of playing around with for the past couple of years, and I have to give credit to our home inspection report writing software, Spectora. It's a phenomenal software, and they've really risen to be the primary home inspection report software in the country. So this is not a unique thing. If you're listening to this and you're wondering if home inspectors in your market have this ability, the answer is probably yes. But Spectora came out with a really cool recommended contractors system. So they have their own infrastructure for how to share leads efficiently. And basically we can set up a local vendor as a recommended contractor, and we can associate that vendor with certain report recommendations. So, if it's an HVAC company, any time we create a recommendation in a report that has an HVAC professional or an HVAC contractor as the recommended contractor, it will bring that vendor into the report associated with the defect. So if we've got an old furnace, for example, now in the recommended contractor section of the report, it will show the HVAC contractor as the recommended contractor for that old furnace. And then all the client or the agent has to do is hit get quote. And because we've already set them up in our system, it will email that report comment to the contractor. So not only are you getting a lead, or you getting a contact, you're getting the information specific to that recommendation from the report. So you've got photos, you've got videos, you've got a detailed write-up of the issue in your inbox and the client's name, number, and that's essentially an opt-in as well that you could keep in touch with that person. So again, whether or not you quote that, now you've got a qualified lead there. So that just really makes the whole process move so much more smoothly, and it doesn't involve any heavy lifting on our part. We've set it up. We've got the recommended contractor in the system. That's all between the client, the agent, and the contractor at that point, and we're able to just keep going on with business as usual, and that just happens on the back end. So again, a lot of really cool advancements out there just from a tech platform side of things that can just make this, so much easier and just a smooth process all around.
Yeah, I think that's really cool. First of all, I think what's going on in my mind as I'm thinking about that is, I always say that the riches are in the niches, and and so we have a lot of clients that like plumbers as an example, right? You look at plumbing as a service, and I mean it can be everything from sewers to water heaters to piping and repiping, right?
Sure.
Water filtration, and so in my experience, some of the best companies out there, like we just recently brought on a client that does trenchless sewer line repair. Okay, all they do, that's it. And so, they're a plumbing company, of course, but if if they're listening to this and thinking about, gosh, is it really that advantageous for me to go and network and build relationships with home inspectors because I've got such a specialized kind of thing? The answer is yeah, it really is, because it sounds like what you're saying is with this software that is pretty common in your industry, you can really go in and say, like, these are the specific types of jobs that we would want to refer out to these people. And so it's not only are you getting referrals that are frankly far and away the best lead source that you can get, but now you're getting targeted, referrals for the types of services or products that you want to be, performing or putting into your clients' homes. And that to me,
Yeah.
I mean, that's like gold on gold, man. It's like gold layered gold.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's
Oh, you're right.
that,
You're right. And maybe, I always say, and it's true, every home inspection report has the MEP stuff. I mean, there's always a water heater issue. There's always a furnace issue. And maybe you don't come across fire suppression system issues that often, or water softeners, or landscape irrigation issues. But when you do, that it's so much more valuable because it is so specific. I mean, just to give you an example, I was talking to a real estate agent that we do a lot of work with, and we're just prepping. We've got an inspection on an 18,000 square foot home on Thursday this week. So we were having kind of a debriefing call to kind of plan this inspection out. And, she said, hey, there's a koi pond, and there's fountains, and there's, all these specialty systems. Do you know anyone that just works on, water features? And I don't, but if I did, that would be a very valuable, niche. And so, when
for our landscaping people that are in the Denver market, they're listening in on this.
Give me a call. So when you have those really targeted referrals, I mean, that's particularly beneficial because the volume might not be there, but when the demand is there, the likelihood of conversion is so much higher because people don't have multiple options. So they're just happy to have the referral.
Yeah, well, and what's their option at that point, right? Go out to Google and like contractors specializing in water features near me.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
Google's pretty good at delivering back results, but they're not that good at delivering back results.
Exactly.
Yeah, because that is so specialized. Well, Andrew, if somebody were a water feature contractor in the Denver market and they wanted to develop a relationship with you or any type of contractor for that matter, how do they go about finding you and getting that process started?
Yeah, well, certainly reach out. We're very easy to get a hold of. alpinebuildingperformance.com is our website. Of course, you can search us just online, Alpine Building Performance, and on all social media platforms at Alpine Building Performance. We do have specifically on our recommended contractors. Actually, it's our home service provider webpage. Within our website, we do have a contact form if anyone's interested in becoming a preferred home service provider. We do have a form you can fill out, but certainly, shoot us an email, give us a call. We'd love to talk to you and learn more about your company. And I mean, we are open, to building relationships with any and all service categories. So we'd love to hear from you and talk with you.
Awesome. Thank you. And for that matter, thank you for coming on the podcast today. This has been absolutely fantastic. And I haven't done a piece like this yet, but I think that I think any home service contractor that cues in on this and listens to this is gonna think what I think, which is this has been absolute gold, man. So thank you for sharing your knowledge and expertise with us, Andrew, and thank you again for coming on today.
Oh, it's been a pleasure, Adam. I appreciate it, and it's always great to talk home service industry. And I hope some listeners found it valuable. But yeah, really appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah, it's absolutely been my pleasure. And to our listeners, thank you again for tuning in on this, I think, very special edition here of the Home Services Marketing Growth to Acquisition podcast. Again, my name is Adam Loveridge with Job Calls, and I look forward to the next one.